Hey, gang. We're about a month out from the 2025 NHL Draft, and from the perspective of the Calgary Flames, it's a really unique, exciting time. The Flames are coming off a regular season where they lost out on the playoffs by mere tiebreakers, and I would say there's a lot of optimism both within the organization and within the fan base regarding the team's medium-term future. Short-term might be a little bit bumpy as the team transitions from an older core to a younger core. But, Dustin Wolf became a top flight National Hockey League player during 24-25. And so if you're a Flames fan going, okay, that's kind of cool. What else you got? You're probably kind of curious about what else the Flames have in their prospect base, especially heading towards the 2025 NHL Draft, where the Flames have, once again, multiple first-round picks. So much like we did a year ago, let's delve into what the Flames have in their prospect cupboards. And we'll be focusing on players who are eligible for the Calder Trophy. So there's a couple of players that have been bumped off the list because they played too many NHL games, and another player who's just a little bit too old to be included in this list because of the Calder's age eligibility rules. So we'll get into that. So let's dive in, and we'll start things off with the players who are graduates from this year's list. So two players have graduated from the 2024 edition of this list, and they've graduated because they've played a bunch of NHL games. First off, Adam Klapka. Klapka is graduating because he's played 2 seasons of 6 NHL games or more. And, let's be honest, there's a pretty decent chance he's played his last AHL games. A year ago, we thought, okay, let's see if Klapka can take what he's learned in the first 2 years of pro hockey and his first experiences in the NHL and grow from them. And the answer is yes. He was down the stretch fourth line regular and occasionally made some really nice plays to help the team win. And that's really all you could hope for from a fourth liner. Who knows what his upside is, but he's 6'8". He can move much better than you'd expect a guy who's 6'8" and 240 something to do, and he's got good instincts. He's not a liability anywhere on the ice, so he's pretty much what you would hope he would be. The other graduate, probably no surprise, Dustin Wolf. Dustin Wolf is one of the 3 finalists for the Calder Trophy as the NHL's top rookie. He has played too many games in the NHL to be considered a rookie anymore, so he is no longer a rookie, and therefore he's graduated from this list. Dustin Wolf is the Flames' top goaltender. He will be the top goaltender for a while. So far, he has become what the Flames and their fans had hoped he would become when they drafted him in 2019. So, great work, Dustin Wolf. Keep doing Dustin Wolf things. And one quick note: you won't see Sam Morton on this list. He would otherwise be included in the forward list, but he's too old to be included on this list. He's aged out, so unfortunately. Sorry, Sam Morton, you're graduating. But, Morton played 1 NHL game last year. He scored a goal. He's pretty decent. He's good for the Wranglers down the stretch. And even though he's not technically a prospect by our definition anymore, he's definitely someone you want to keep an eye out for the 25-26 Flame season, because if he doesn't start with the NHL group, I think he'll be someone who really pushes for his spot, because he was very effective for the Wranglers down the stretch. So that's the names you will not see on this list. And now we'll go into the positions, and we'll go goaltender, defenseman, forward like last year, and we will do it in reverse age order, oldest players first, and moving our way down to the youngest players. So we will start off with the goaltenders. All right, goaltenders. We'll start off with a very interesting one, Valtteri Ignatieff, Finnish player from who played in Sweden, who came over to North America this year. He's heading back to Sweden. He is a pending restricted free agent. If the Flames qualify him, they'll retain his NHL rights for the next couple years until he turns 27. Ignatieff's interesting player. He played behind Devin Cooley for much of the year with the Wranglers, really pushing to, stay in the playoff hunt. Cooley gave them the best chance to win, so they really leaned on Cooley. And they won, but it gave the downside of that philosophy was that Ignatieff did not get much chance to play and get adjusted to the smaller North American ice for the first chunk of the season. Then Cooley got injured in January, and when he came back, he wasn't quite exactly as confident in his game as he had been before. And so the Wranglers had to lean on Ignatiev a little bit more than they anticipated. And, because he hadn't played very much, you could sort of see some growing pains with Ignatiev. So, as we'll get into, there's a bunch of young pros in the goaltending ranks in the Flame system. So between, probably Ignatiev seeking a bigger role, Ignatiev seeking to be closer to home, Ignatiev, probably just looking for a bit of a change after probably what was a tough year for him. He's heading back to Sweden for next season, but we'll see if the future holds. Sometimes guys come back, and if you're the Flames, you hold on to his rights, and there's really no downside to it. Next up, another oldie but goodie, Daniil Chechelev. We talk about Daniil Chechelev every year. He was a 2024 rounder. He's sort of been the victim of some numbers games everywhere he's played. He's played a bit of the AHL, a bit in the coast, played in Russia. He's still in Russia. He spent this past year sort of bouncing around a bit. So he hasn't played very much. All due respect to him, I don't think he's a prospect only technically at this point. I don't think he's coming back to North America. I don't think he's going to get much of a realistic chance to become a top flight player in Russia, North America, wherever. But it's kind of a shame because you could sort of see what he did play, the potential he had. But unfortunately, you need to get reps to keep growing, and Chechelev just wasn't in situations with the various teams he was on where he could grow. So he's sort of the victim of circumstance in the numbers game. So I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to see if Chechelev can make a career out of it, because he's one of those stories that you're like, ooh, rooting for the guy, but the odds aren't good. But we'd love to be wrong. Next up, a new face in the Flames organization, goaltender Owen Say from Notre Dame. Owen Say has worked his way up through a few levels of hockey. He was in the BCHL for a couple years. Then he went to the NCAA and some of the lower conferences. This past year, he transferred in to Notre Dame in the Big Ten, which is one of the better conferences. And he was a good goalie on a bad team, for lack of a better term. Great numbers, very poor win-loss record, but he got a lot of reps, and he, on a team that didn't score very much, he gave his team a chance to win. And I know what you're thinking. Ooh, he sounds like a Flames goalie, and the fit is not lost on us. The idea that you want guys who are used to sort of playing tight games because that way they won't get rattled by them. I don't hate that philosophy. I kind of see it. So, Owen Say signed an entry-level deal. He'll be playing in either the AHL or the coast with Rapid City. He'll get a chance, but, we'll see. But, at this point, you sign goalies and see who really determines who plays the most. So, Owen Say, brand new face. We'll see how he does. A familiar face to the Flames fans, and one that had a hell of a year, Arseny Sergayev. Sergayev was a late-round pick a few years ago. He had kind of a circuitous route to pro hockey, but he's made the most of it. Follow along. He was drafted out of the North American Hockey League of the amazingly named Shreveport Mudbugs. Flames drafted him. He went to the Tri-City Storm in the United States Hockey League. Played a year, won the Goalie of the Year award, had a fantastic season. Moved on to the NCAA, played 2 seasons with the University of Connecticut Huskies. He never really grabbed hold of the top spot with UConn. He was sort of in tandems both seasons. Both seasons it kind of looked like he would grab hold of this top spot, and then either he'd get hurt or he'd have sort of a couple bad games, and then you could sort of see the coaches throw the brakes on that plan and go, whoa, we need to tandem you for a while. And so he showed flashes of brilliance, but the consistency, let's be honest, wasn't quite there for him to really become the undisputed starter. For his junior year, the folks at Penn State, the Nittany Lions, went, hey, we feel like we've got a decent team, but we need goaltending. We need a consistent goaltender, and we think you can be it. Can you come? You want to transfer here and be our guy? And Sergayev said, golly gee, sure would love to. And they promised him a more reliable role, and he pledged that he would find consistency, and it worked out for both of them. He got injured in November after a pretty decent start. He came back in January, and from January until the end of their season in April, 3 months later, there were few goaltenders in all of college hockey who were better than Arseniy Sergayev. He put up great numbers, gave him a chance to win every night, and they went to the national semifinal on the Frozen Four, losing a really tight, entertaining game to Boston University. So the Flames signed Sergayev, and he'll be probably with the Wranglers next year. We'll see. But he's one of those late round guys. Let's say with Dustin Wolf. Dustin Wolf was fantastic, and it was just dumb reasons why he didn't get drafted earlier. And so the Flames just basically, found a lottery ticket because other teams were dumb and didn't pick it up. And honestly, a lot of teams were dumb for that. Sergayev, a little bit more of a reach just because, he's playing in second-tier United States Junior. The NAHL is a rung below the USHL. And so, it's basically you're taking a Junior A or Junior B goalie and betting on his potential. And right now, Sergayev is really, really impressing. And so we'll see what he turns into. But he's done a lot to really make people believers of him and his game. Behind Sergayev, two more Russians. First, 2023 selection, Yegor Yegorov. Sort of bounced around this year. He was with the Moscow Dynamo system. Now he's with the Moscow Spartak system. Same kind of thing. I think Dynamo had too many goalies. He was sort of lost in the shuffle. He played some minor pro. He played some minor junior, the rung below the MHL. But then, he ended up with the Soviet Wings, which is one of Spartak's two junior teams, arguably the worst of their two junior teams. They also have a Spartak junior team. He was fine. He had a decent year. Numbers were fine. You can make an argument that he needed some consistency to really grow his game. Consistency both in performance and consistency in how he was used, where he was used. We didn't really see that, so he sort of bounced around a bit. But we'll see. He's, I believe, headed back in Spartak system for at least one more year, and we'll see what happens. But he's Russian and he's young, so a lot of those times they have long runways. One last goalie, 2024 selection, Kirill Zarubin. Kirill Zarubin was selected from the Mykolaiv Academy, AKM Tula in Russia. He put up great numbers in his draft year. He played less this year. He sort of bounced around a bit. He was up briefly with the KHL team, and I think he backed up one time. He was, with their minor pro team for a little bit. So he sort of they gave him some chances to sort of test the waters at higher levels, but he ended up playing a little bit less in the MHL than he did in prior years. They had a team that was juggling a bunch of goalies. So if you're juggling a bunch of goalies, you ride the hot hand. And if you're going for a chunk of the season, that wasn't Zarubin. For a chunk of the season, it was Zarubin. And so ultimately, he put up pretty solid numbers in the MHL. But, much like Yegorov, he's a guy who has a bit of a long runway, so we'll see how it goes. But as you can see, the Flames have Dustin Wolf, and then they have a bunch of pretty interesting options behind him. None of them seem like they'll be NHL options immediately, but if we're being honest, they probably don't need any of them to be NHL options immediately because they have Dustin Wolf. So, if you're the Flames, you're probably feeling pretty happy with your goaltending situation right now. On to the defenseman. All right. If you thought we had a lot of Russians and Belarusians in the goaltending ranks, here's some defensemen who are from Russia and Belarus. First up, Ilya Solovyov from Belarus. We've talked about him a lot the last 2 years. He's knocking on the door of the NHL. He played a decent chunk of games up in the NHL this year once again. Didn't get a ton of time because the Flames were carrying 8 defensemen, but when Solovyov was in the AHL, he's the great stabilizer for the Wranglers. He's a guy you can play with anyone, and it makes that pairing useful, good, balanced. And so he's really versatile. He can cover up a lot. His offensive game, you can make a sense. Nothing to write home about. He doesn't score a ton. He's solid. He's AHL solid, but that's not his jam. His jam is he's a smart two-way player, defensive specialist, penalty killer, and he can fill in the gaps for guys he plays with who might have some gaps in their game. Amongst the names he played with this year at various times, Jonathan Aspero, offensive-minded player, Tyson Barrie, offensive-minded player. Yoni Yermo, guy who barely played pro hockey, was getting used to it. So you can sort of get a sense of what the Flames and the Wranglers like about him and the skills he has and why he's valuable. So he's arguably accomplished everything he can in the AHL for a guy in his role, and he'll be someone, he's on a one-way NHL contract for 25, 26. Doesn't mean he'll be on the NHL roster, but it means he'll push. And I think he's one of those guys that you look at, left shot defenseman, can be a complementary piece to a lot of the, up-tempo, puck-moving guys in the system. I think you can sort of see, at the very least, a third pair fit at the NHL level, but we'll see how it goes. He'll definitely be given a chance. Another guy, another left shot defenseman that they like, who's done a lot of really good things last couple years, is Yan Kuznetsov. We'll talk about Hunter Brzustevich in a bit. Hunter Brzustevich had quietly a very effective first year in pro hockey, and I think a lot of the credit for that has to go to not just Brzustevich, because he's a smart player who adapted, but he was given a really reliable, versatile defense partner in Yan Kuznetsov who helped him learn, and they played together pretty much the entire season. And Kuznetsov had a good year offensively, partially I'd argue because Brzustevich is a good offensive player. But also, I think, these guys brought out the best in each other. And if you're someone in the Flames brass going, okay, could Kuznetsov be a guy who can play in the NHL and play with some of these guys who their defensive game might not be as polished as some of the other players in the system? I think you look at this season and you go, okay, can he do that at the next level? And so I think along with Solovyov, I think Kuznetsov will be given a lot of opportunities this coming fall to push for an NHL job, because much like Solovyov, he's been in the AHL long enough that there's probably not a ton left for him to accomplish there for a player of his role. So we'll see what happens, but Kuznetsov has had a nice progression. Next up, Yoni Yermo. Yoni Yermo barely played this year. Bless his heart, he was down on the coast for a little bit, played decently. When he was brought up to the AHL, he was a third pairing guy or a healthy scratch. I'll say this: his play in the ECHL screamed, you need to bring this guy up because he's too good for this level. His play in the AHL screamed, this guy might need a little bit more seasoning. And so, especially, we talked about with Valtteri Ignatiev, where Ignatiev didn't really get a chance to really adapt as quickly or as much, I think, as he would have hoped because of his usage. I think you can make a similar case for Yoni Yermo. Yermo didn't play a ton, and he didn't do a lot when he played. I think he's still waiting on this first AHL point. But, we'll see what happens with Yermo. He seems like the kind of guy that, depending on what happens, maybe, he finishes out his ELC and goes back to Europe. We'll see. But I think the 25-26 season might be the, poo or get off the pot here for Yermo as a North American pro. And, at the very least, he gave it a shot. And, again, we'd love to be wrong. Maybe he comes out of the gates like a screaming maniac and just plays out of his mind in October, and we all look silly. And I'm sure the Flames would love that. The Flames would love to look silly when it comes to Yermo, but that's where he is right now. Okay, Jeremy Poirier. Let's talk about Jeremy Poirier. I love Jeremy Poirier, but I'm frustrated by Jeremy Poirier. Let me explain. I love Jeremy Poirier's offensive game, and we talked about this last year. Poirier got a really nasty skate cut at the beginning of last season, 23-24. And he missed a lot of time. When he came back, it looked like he was tentative. It looked like he was still trying to figure out his what he could get away with. And honestly, if you have something that nasty happen to you on the ice, where you were seriously freaking out about your hockey playing future and or your life, I get it. There's plenty of people who get in crappy car accidents and are just freaking traumatized by it. It's a traumatic experience. And so we're not trying to downplay how rattling that can be. And I just think that I don't think we've seen Poirier be the same player since then. He was better this year than he was after he came back last year. Good offensively, able to jump into the play, engaging physically, those kind of things. But, you didn't see the level of assertiveness or risk-taking with the puck that we saw. He was sort of a safer Jeremy Poirier, which arguably made him a little bit less effective. And, while he was safer offensively, defensively, he was the same Jeremy Poirier. Jeremy Poirier is the type of player that, you live with his defensive quirks, the warts in his defensive game, because he's so damn good offensively. But if his offensive game his confidence in taking those risks, and his knowledge that, okay, I can do this and bail myself out with my other skills. If that part is a little more tentative, the risk reward on Poirier changes a lot. And so, we've not seen Poirier play an NHL game yet, and we'll see what happens with that. But Poirier, I think, is heading into a really, really fascinating season, because there are other players, as we'll get to, other Flames players who are coming up who play sort of a similar style of defensive game and similar style of offensive game. Guys who are similarly, let's not say one-dimensional, but they have their strengths. And so Poirier, I think, is heading into the season where he needs to sort of take charge and sort of lay claim to an NHL spot very quickly, or else he might be left behind, which would be a shame, because Poirier, when he's on his game, you can really see what the Flames and what their scouts really loved about him. All right, one more shutdown boy from Russia, Artem Grushnikov. The Flames got Grushnikov in the Chris Tanev trade with Dallas. Grushnikov spent most of the year in the third pairing with the Wranglers this year. He is a young shutdown guy. You could, if you want to be an optimist, he is a younger, less polished version of Solovyov or Kuznetsov. If you want to be a pessimist, he is a kind of underdeveloped player, hasn't played a ton, doesn't score a ton, and he defensively is probably the worst of the three guys right now. Maybe he'll keep developing. I suspect he will. He's still very young. He's only played 2 years of pro. But he's the guy that they frequently had playing on the third pairing with Poirier, and sheltering him, giving him a bit of ozone time to sort of maybe get him going a bit. Didn't really work out this year, so we'll see. Grushnikov, he feels like a guy that is also heading into a big year, the third year of his entry level deal, because there's guys, again, we mentioned the defensive and offensive guys coming up. There's probably guys knocking on the door who play a more developed version of Grushnikov's game. All right, next up, right shot defenseman Hunter Brzustewicz. Hunter Brzustewicz was a damn fine offensive player in the OHL, put up very good numbers, almost same correct level numbers in 23-24, came to the AHL and was fine. He had some warts in his game early in the year, but you could tell he worked on it. His numbers offensively got better and better as the year went on, and defensively, he was less and less noticeable. And if there's one thing you want your defenseman to be, it's not noticeable in their own end. So you could sort of see flashes of what he was in the OHL throughout the season. He played his first NHL game, and he was pretty decent. He was good. So, and for the Flames, you look at Brzustewicz in his first year of pro and go, okay, that's not bad. And you probably hope that sort of sets the floor for his development as a pro. Because if he can take what he did this season and add a bit more offense, a bit more confidence, and a bit more swagger to his game, you've got something good there. And the Flames would love that. Another very versatile, very exciting young defenseman is Etienne Morin. Etienne Morin currently playing in the Q. He's been sort of up and down. 2023 pick. His offensive numbers took a dip in 23-24, bumped back up in 24-25. He's really working on his overall defensive game, I'm told. He's good. You notice him a ton in Moncton games. He touches the puck a lot. The puck's always on his stick, and he does a lot of smart things with it. Is he an absolute phenom offensively? No. Is he a liability defensively? Also no. And that's probably the nice thing for him, because there are guys that need sheltering. I don't think Morin is that. There are guys that you need to use to shelter other guys, but can't really do a lot offensively. I don't think Morin is that either. And as a result, I think Morin, as a lefty who can do a lot of different things for your team, play in any situation, play a lot of situations, play with a lot of different players, I think he gives you a lot of options going forward. And so if you're the Flames, loaded up with a lot of right shot guys who have a certain profile, having someone with Morin who not only can play with those guys, but can hold his own and potentially add to those types of pairings, I think you're really happy with that. Next up, Axel Hurtig, 2023 pick. He big, he defensive. He was playing in Sweden last couple years, came over as an import to join the Calgary Hitmen this year, and was really good. He was one of the better plus-minus players in the entire Western League. Played a ton, was really leaned on as a tough-minute shutdown guy, playing against some of the best and brightest in the Western League, and he held his own, all while learning to play on the smaller North American ice. So Hertig, you'd love if he could score more, but he's one of those guys that, he's a smart player. He knows what he is. He knows what his strengths are. And, when you see him play, you go, okay, he's kind of got the pro body. Does he have the pro mind? Maybe. He adapted so well this year to a completely different style of hockey in the Western League. So that makes me suspect that he has that adaptability to him. And so, we'll see what happens. He's eligible to go back to the Western League for one more year. He'd be a two-spotter, an overager, and an import. But with the Western League adding a third import spot along with the rest of Canadian junior hockey, he's easier to fit in. And, if you're the Flames, you don't necessarily have a spot for him in your pro system right away. You don't, they have a lot of bodies going in and out of the Wranglers this season, so you might not want to throw him into that churn a bit. And an extra year in the Western League to sort of develop his confidence and develop his offensive game potentially could be really good for him. But, for his first year in North America, it's hard to really poke holes into the season Hertig had because he was an important player on a pretty damn good Western League team. Next up, another pretty good player on a pretty good Western League team was Eric Jameson of the Everett Silvertips. He captained the team. He was a defensive partner for Landon DuPont, who entered the league as a very young man, I believe 15-year-old, as a exceptional status player. And they were really good this year. And Jameson was really good this year. Another strong plus-minus year. Good offensive numbers, but not great. He's going to be another shutdown guy, sort of a two-way defender. But he was really good this year. Everett was really good this year. They sort of slipped on a banana peel in the playoffs, but Jameson, not a lot for him left to accomplish in the Western League, so he's going to be going to the University of Denver for the 25-26 season as a freshman, and we'll see what happens. But he's if you're looking to challenge a guy with a different role, with a different team, a different style of hockey, and not throw him to the Wolves in pro, I like this move for Jameson. So I think we'll keep tabs on him, but he's a really interesting project that the Flames have in their system. Next up, a couple of players that Flames are very happy about and excited about, starting off with Zane Parekh. Zane Parekh, 9th overall pick in 2024, had over 100 points in the Ontario League, had 30 goals for the second year in a row, has been doing things defensively that haven't been done in the OHL since it was the OHA, and Bobby Orr played in it. It's hard to really poke holes in Zane Parech's season. Got off to a slow start offensively. He was to his own mission, paying a bit more attention to the details of the defensive game, and he was really good this year. Saginaw wasn't as stacked a team, so he arguably had a little bit less to work with than he had in the past, but he did everything he could. He was very good this year. Somehow did not make the World Junior team. We all have feelings about that. I've seen too much of Parekh to really have an unbiased opinion on it, so I will leave that there. I would have taken him, but he came in, played, hung out with the Flames for a few weeks, played his first NHL game, scored an NHL goal, and he will be given every potential chance to make the NHL roster out of camp because there's very little for him left to accomplish as a major junior player, and so we'll see what happens. But you can sort of see the things that he does with the puck and how dynamic he is and how confident he is, how smart he is, and how adaptable he is. I think you see what he does and go, okay, I get it. And if you're the Flames, you're pretty happy with what he's been so far. So there's a lot of optimism about Zane Parekh. Another player there's a lot of optimism about is Henry Muse, 2024 picked a couple of rounds later than Zane Parekh. Henry Muse is a damn fine OHL defenseman. Split the year between Ottawa and Sudbury, 82 points, very, very good season. He wasn't great in the playoffs. He didn't really click in Sudbury, but he had a good year. He is destined for the University of Michigan for 25-26, much like Eric Jameson, a guy who didn't really have a lot less left to accomplish at the major junior level, and so he will be going to college, and we'll see how he does. Yeah, Muse, good player, smart offensively, probably needs to develop a bit more physically, and college is a great place for that. So that, my friends, is the Flames' many, many, many defensive prospects. Now, let's move on to the forward group. All right, forwards. First up, local kid Carter King. Carter King, born and raised in Calgary, grew up a Flames fan, signed a contract with the Flames. He played in the NCAA with Denver, the school that Eric Jamison's going to. Had, good run in college. And then he signed with the Flames, played a couple games with the Wranglers down the stretch and into the playoffs. It was pretty good. He, for a guy who was playing on a fairly depleted team late in the AHL season, he was pretty good. He stood out positively, and we'll see how he does as a first-year pro. You can make some comparisons to Sam Morton, kind of similar player, kind of similar background, similar archetype. And I think, I might be unfair to sort of have these same expectations for them, but I think there are going to be some comparisons to them. And so, I think if you're the Flames, you're hoping that King makes a push and, does a lot of good things this season because, college players, you sign them in a little bit, later in their development, they're a bit more polished, might not have as much upside left on them to grow. But, King, really good college player. The Flames are very happy to get him, and we'll see what he turns into. But so far, so good for Carter King. Next up, this is one of my more fascinating players to talk about, Rory Cairns. Rory Cairns is a good offensive AHLer. Is he an AHL center? We can, reasonable people can disagree. I don't know if his defensive details are quite at the level where you'd want him to be the center carrying a line. And if you look at how the Wranglers use him this year, they had him with a lot of good wingers who can do that two-way work. Stromgren, Pelche, Dewar, Hunt, so on and so forth. He was put up with good players who could do some of that dirty work. Did it work? Yes, he scored a ton. He was very good offensively, and he's a player who knows how to get to those areas to score goals. Can he get the puck there on his own? We'll see. But the Wranglers coaching staff did a nice job sort of putting Cairns in a situation where he could use his talents and really be effective. At the NHL level, the similar things were done. He was put in situations at the NHL level in his handful of games where he was able to do that. But the question is there a consistent role for him? And or can he bring his defensive details up to a level where he doesn't need to have his hand held, so to speak, as much as at the NHL level? We'll see. But, Cairns, if we're being completely honest, was a guy that I wasn't sure was going to get a qualifying offer after this season based on how the first two seasons of his entry level had gone. He quite simply was not a guy who was a prospect of note. But you got to give Cairns a ton of credit. He saw the writing on the wall probably and went, nope, I'm gonna turn this around. And he turned around. He had a great year. And, I know even when we add the qualifiers to Cairns had a great season, but let's not lose sight of the great season. He was one of the better offensive players in the entire AHL. The AHL is one of the best leagues in the world. And so Rory Cairns was one of the best offensive players in one of the best leagues in the world. Whether or not he's able to do more than that depends on the factors I mentioned, but let's not poo-poo his year too much. He was really good. Next up, Lucas Ciona. Ciona is a fascinating player. I love Lucas Ciona as a prospect in the sense that Lucas Ciona sort of has a very small role that he can fill at the higher levels of hockey. Is he a high-end defensive player? No. But he's a smart player, and I think this season, he struggled at times in 23-24 with the pace and with figuring out what his role was. We've all seen it. The guy that his entire body language screams, "What am I supposed to do with my hands?" That was Ciona in his first year in the AHL. He went back, worked his butt off over the summer, came into camp in what I'm told is incredible shape, and it translated. He went from a guy going, what am I supposed to do at the AHL level, to really having an identity to his game at the AHL level. And he's a pain in the ass to play against, frequently first in the corners for battles, for scrums, throwing big hits. And he's willing to be a bit of a blunt instrument in order to create turnovers, in order to create plays. And he had a lot of confidence and a lot of success in doing that. So Lucas Ciona is low key a guy I almost expect to get NHL games in the near future if he keeps this up, because he did the same kind of thing in the Western League with the Seattle Thunderbirds. He came in as a 16-year-old who wasn't really sure what the hell am I supposed to be doing. And then by the time he left, he was the captain of a Western League champion team. And he did that basically by building his game like this. So Ciona, 2 years into his entry level, I think they're really happy with his progression. And, he's, I say, someone to keep an eye on this year in terms of can he keep building and add more stuff to his game. Next up, another player who's heading into the third year of his entry level, William Stromgren. William Stromgren had a really, really, really interesting year. I will cite a link in the description, a piece that my post-media colleague Wes Gilbertson did after exit interviews where Stromgren discussed his season. Stromgren went from being, he had a hell of a close to the 23-24 season, nearly point per game, and he had offensively a pretty good 24-25 season. But we've seen this before. When guys get called up, the guys who can fill the void are typically the guys that end up getting NHL opportunities, because they're able to fill a space, for lack of a better term. And Stromgren, unfortunately, in the second half of this past season, when the Wranglers lost all those key guys, he did not look worse than he was before, but he didn't look better. He was consistent in the sense that he was consistently William Stromgren. He was a reliable, meat and potatoes, middle six winger, occasionally made great plays, occasionally disappeared, but he generally speaking, he's pretty dang good. The problem was there was an opportunity for him to sort of grab hold of sort of an upper level spot, the way we saw Jimmy. We've seen Jacob Pelche do it in the past. We saw Matt Coronado do it last year. We've seen the guys who tend to jump to the next level are the guys that jump onto those opportunities, and Stromgren just wasn't able to do that this past season. So based on Wes's conversation with him, he understands that, because he seems like he's going to be pretty dialed in this summer, and we'll see. But Stromgren, smart, Swedish, size, speed. There's a lot to like about the player. It might just be a case of him having the time to put it all together. But, we'll see what happens with him. Parker Bell. Parker Bell was this year what Lucas Ciona was a year ago, except a little bit better. Parker Bell was a healthy scratch far less often than than Lucas Ciona was 2 years ago. He seemed to have a much better sense of what he should be able to do and what he could be doing. And maybe it's just the fact that, between Ciona and the coaching staff, they sort of were able to impart on Bell the lessons that they learned from Ciona's first year. But Bell was decent. He was a rock solid bottom six player. Didn't really move up the rotation very much, but the Wranglers, even when they were depleted, had enough bodies that they didn't really need to force Bell into odd situations that he didn't usually play in. So we'll see where he goes. Bell also heading into the third year of his entry-level deal. His first year was burned because he was an overager in the Western League 2 years ago. So we'll see what he does. But, he's a solid prospect. He's big. And, we'll see if his game develops an identity the way Ciona's did in the coming seasons. Trevor Hoskin. Trevor Hoskin's fantastic. He's very fun. So he is basically, I would say, the forward version of Owen Say, in the sense that Owen Say was someone who played in sort of the junior A level and then worked in his college and sort of had a slow burn. Hoskin did similar. He was in the OJHL, played a bunch of years in the OJ, built up his game. His last year, 23-24, he was the best player in Canadian junior A hockey. He was the MVP of the whole CJHL. He won basically everything you could win in the OJHL. Very good player. He got drafted as a 20-year-old, I believe a third year eligible, by the Flames in the fourth round, because one of the area scouts saw his game, was like, damn, this kid's good. And he was good. Even if you factor in the age part of it, he was a damn fine junior player, and committed to college. And I think the thought process was, okay, he's going to go to Niagara University in the Atlantic Hockey Conference, the low tier of Division I, and we'll see how he does. How did he do? He did really good. He was the Rookie of the Year in that conference, and he was one of the top scoring freshmen in the entire NCAA. What does that get you? It got him a conference change. He transferred over to Merrimack College in Hockey East, and he will be playing in a much better conference. Can he put up similar, if not better numbers in a better conference? We'll see. He's a guy who's, he's a bit of a late bloomer, but I think you look at what he's done offensively the last couple seasons and go, okay, that's not a bad bet, and we'll see how he does. But he's a bit of a longer term project, but you can sort of see why the Flames are kind of high on him. Another longer term prospect, a late round pick in 22, Cade Liddler. Liddler is big. He's right-handed. He is a center, or at least a guy who can play center. He bounced around a bit in his 2 years post selection. Spent this past season as a freshman with the University of North Dakota, a pretty damn good college program. He played decently. He had a few flashes of brilliance, a few games where he just sort of rattled off a couple points. He was mostly playing in their bottom six, mostly playing right wing and center. We'll see how he goes as he matures. The idea is in the NCAA, you work your way up the rotation. So next year, you're going to be hoping that Liddler plays more, as in no healthy scratches for him next year, and then works his way up the rotation, maybe into the middle six somewhere. But he's a kind of a late bloomer. He's kind of a longer term project, but he's a 7th rounder. And if you get a 7th rounder that turns into something interesting, you're pretty happy. And so far, so good on Cade Liddler. He's plugging along. Next up, the first round pick in 2023, Sam Honzek. Honzek had a weird year, and let me explain why. Honzek was he was okay in Penticton, and then he was really, really, really good in main camp to the point where he started the year with the NHL roster. How did he do that? 1, there were some injuries, so there's an open spot for him. 2, he worked his ass off, and he was really good in pretty much every preseason game I saw him in. The worst version of Honzek was 2 or 3 smart plays in a game and nothing that hurt you. And he did a lot more than that most of the game. So he was fully deserving of his spot, but the spot was open for him. Then he got hurt. He got banged up on a hit against Chicago, missed a bit of time, came back, played another game, went down to the AHL, and then he had to learn the AHL. And much like Brustevich, he spent the year learning. He played some wing, he played some center. I think they probably needed to make a decision long term if he's going to be a wing or a center and just sort of commit to it. That's neither here nor there. But the detail of his game are pretty good. The execution of some of the things, you could sort of see him, the wheels are still moving in terms of figuring out what he can and can't do at the time and space he's afforded to in the AHL level. But there was some games where he was really, really good. I think with a good summer, I think he could progress quite a bit. I know there's some fans who are sort of a little bit sour on Honzek's potential. I will say this. Remember that one year, remember that year where, Connor Zary went into the AHL and he broke his foot in camp and then barely played. And then, he started off on the, on the slow foot and then got going. This is the same kind of year for Honzek in terms of their exact same ages, in terms of the exact same spot contractually. Both those players had an extra slide year, so they get 4 years on the entry-level deal. This was year 1 for Honzek, so if he gets any kind of progression whatsoever in your first year of a 4-year ELC, I think you go, okay, fine, whatever. You got to take this year as a bonus, take it for what it is, take it for what it's worth. And Honzek, did he progress this year? Yeah, he learned how to play pro hockey, and he showed flashes of the player I think the Flames hope he can become, and it's just a case of him building on it. So if you want to say, oh, dang, Honzek's not a good prospect, you're entitled to your opinion, but I think it's also extremely premature to say that. If you want to say, oh boy, Honzek's the next Joe Nieuwendyk, you probably want to pump the brakes there too. Too early to tell in either direction. But he's, at the very least, you're hoping that he can stay healthy and put some games together, because when he has gotten a chance to really put some games together, you can sort of see the confidence building. Next up, Aidar Suniev, 2023 third-round pick. They got the pick from the Tyler Toffoli trade. Aidar Suniev's had a couple good years. He was drafted out of the BCHL, out of Penticton, had gaudy offensive numbers, And folks went, I don't know if he can translate this to the NCAA. Went to UMass, first year, solid. Very solid. Offensive numbers weren't amazing, but it's a different style of game, and you could sort of see him learning and trying to process. This year, sophomore year, point per game player. Very good. Offensive numbers jumped off the page. He looked confident. He looked good. His details of his game, by all accounts, were improved, and he ended up having a good year. One of the better players and one of the better college teams in his conference, and he signed his entry-level deal with the Flames, made his NHL debut in the season finale, and he looked absolutely fine. So he will be a guy that I think probably goes to the Wranglers next year, but I think you have your eye on as someone, who can make a push. He's got that defensive ceiling, and the fact that he played in a pretty good college program means that his details have gotten an opportunity to be polished a bit. So maybe he'll progress faster than some of the other guys in the system. But, left shot winger who can score and has a good shot and knows where to go and how to get there to get that shot off. He's run some comparisons in terms of his shot mechanics to Matt Coronado. If he turns into a poor man's Matt Coronado, you're really happy with him. And I'm not willing to put that ceiling on him. So we'll see how he goes. But Suniev is a player to be optimistic about. Another project coming up, Jaden Lipinski. He was a 2023 pick, 6'4", 190-something. Big, smart, right shot center. Did not really progress a ton offensively over the last 2 years in the dub with the Vancouver Giants. They tried him out at the AHL for a bit early this season, played a couple games. He was fine, but he wouldn't have been given much more of a chance to be than a fourth line center. Went back for his overage year. He was fine. He was what he was the year before. Didn't really take a big step as a 20-year-old. Didn't take a step back as a 20-year-old. But he's committed to go to college in Maine for the coming season, so the Flames retain his rights. Might have been lost in the shuffle as a first-year pro, but he gets an opportunity to sort of keep building his game a bit. So we'll see. He's because of his size and because he's a right shot center, I think he's someone to keep an eye on because the Flames don't have a lot of either of those in their system. But he's gonna have to go into Maine and build a bit to make sure he doesn't stagnate or make sure he doesn't stall out. But there's a lot to like about the player. One more from the Western League, Andrew Basha, the Calgary kid, second rounder in 2024. It turns out Andrew Basha is playing with a wrecked ankle for a good chunk of the last year, including most of his draft year. Depending on whether you talk to the Flames or Basha, he was playing at either 60 or 70%. Either way, it was good enough for him to be a second rounder. And he had surgery in January. He is currently, as we're recording this, playing in the Memorial Cup. He came back for the Western League Championship round, had a good series, scored a goal, looked good generally. He's probably going to go to the AHL for the coming season. He has a contract, and he also doesn't really have a lot left to accomplish in the Western League, but we'll see. He's coming off an injury, so depending on where they think he'll get the most developmental opportunities and the most reps, but he's a not big left shot forward who plays with some snarl. He does not know that he's the size he is. He is a battering ram, a wrecking ball. He's got some Siona in him, but no disrespect to Lucas Siona, I would say that Andrew Basha has a much higher offensive ceiling. But this type of snarl, the type of willingness to barrel through guys to create opportunities for himself and his teammates, that's kind of the attributes that the Flames really like about Basha. And a lot of folks in the Western League are pretty optimistic about what he can do at the higher levels. So we'll see how he goes. But there's a lot to like there. Another kid from the O going to college, Luke Misa, the older brother of presumptive top prospect in this year's draft, Michael Misa. Luke, very good offensive player. He's sort of an undersized center, undersized-ish. He's like 5'10", 5'11". Plays center, left shot. Probably, some folks think he's destined for the wing, but we'll see. He had a strong offensive year in the OHL with Brampton, and he is committed to go to Penn State for the coming year. Again, guy who might have been lost in the shuffle in Wranglertown with the number of pro bodies they have right now, and didn't really have a lot left to accomplish in the OHL. So he goes to college and gets a different opportunity to show what he can do and to develop. So we'll see how that goes. But Misa, there's a lot to like about the player. He's a very fun, dynamic, offensive player, and we'll see if he can fill the rest out in college. Matt Vigridden, the Flames' second first-rounder in 24, played in the USHL. Maybe, he got selected in the import draft in the CHL by Val d'Or, got traded to Shawinigan. Either way, he played the year in the Shawinigan, is currently a contender for the Q's Rookie of the Year award. He won their Offensive Rookie of the Year award. He's on their all-rookie team. He had a very good season. He was one of the top 10 or 12 scorers in the entire Q, tied for the team league in scoring in the Q. He was he started off, you could sort of see him dip his toe in a bit, and then he figured it out, and he could play his game in the Q. Really good speed, really good shot. I think the question is, can he, figure out the physical side of it a bit more? He's eligible to go to the AHL next season, or you could go back to Shawinigan as a 19-year-old. He's not even overager. He's a 06, so he'd be 19 this year. He's a fascinating player because you see the offensive skills, you see the shot, you see the way he's able to move around the ice, and you go, oh damn, if he can figure out a way to get into the physical side of it a bit, crash and bang and get the puck and be a bit more of a puck retriever. There's a lot to like there, and so we'll see what happens with him this year. He's a fascinating player to watch. Another one from the OHL, Jacob Battaglia, second rounder in the 24 draft, 40 goals, 90 points with the Kingston Frontenacs of the OHL. He has signed his entry-level deal. He's not eligible to go to the A next year, so he's going back to the OHL for his 19-year-old season. And he was one of the more consistently effective and dangerous offensive players in the OHL in 24-25, and the expectation will be that he takes a step next year. And so if he's a 90-point, 40-goal player this year, I think the hope and the dream and the possible expectation is, can he be a 50-goal, 100-point guy in the OHL next year? And based on what I've seen, I wouldn't bet against him. He's very good. And another guy who's got a bit of snarl to his game. He's really good at creating space. He's really good at retrieving pucks. He's he's one of those guys that sort of combines the physicality and the offensive stuff very nicely. And because of that, you can understand why folks would be optimistic about what he could become as a pro. And last but not least, the youngest Flames forward under control is Hunter Lang, the son of Quinton Lang, the former AHLer within the Flame system. He's big. He can play center, can play wing. He got traded midseason from Prince George to the Saskatoon Blades and was pretty good. And he's returning to the OHL, or returning to the Western League rather, next season. And he'll be playing with the Blades, and we'll see. He's a later round pick, a little bit less polished than some of the guys picked earlier, and so he's a bit more of a project. But, you see the size, you see the flashes of skill, and you go, if he could find a way to do those things more consistently, he's going to be an absolute steal. And so we will see. Right now, all we know is he's a bit of a project, but he's a project that you can kind of understand what the Flames would want to take on. All right, so I think that about does it with the rundown of the prospects. There are a lot of them. If we were going to be betting on the types of players the Flames will be aiming for in the draft, you can see they got a crap ton of defensemen of various ages. They went heavy on D last year, so I would suspect they would go heavy on forwards, particularly centers, particularly right shot centers in this coming draft. We'll get into which players could be fits for them in an upcoming video, but I think you can sort of see the types of things that the Flames value and the types of things that the Flames have in abundance, and I don't think it's unreasonable to expect them to sort of try to fill in the gaps a bit. So we're still a month away from the 25 NHL draft. We're going to have a whole bunch of stuff on the channel sort of discussing the Flames wants, needs, history, and after the draft I'll have my rundown video. Hopefully I'm not going to the draft this year, so I'll be here, and so I will not have to awkwardly record a video from a hotel room in Vegas this year. I hope. So that'll about do it for me. If you like this video, please click the like button. If you really like this video, please click the subscribe button. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see me take on in the future, throw them down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.